Life and death, it's all a dance. Talking love and giving chance. Laughs and tears, we're here to share. Join us now, we're always there.
Hi, Noelle. How are you today?
I'm fine, how are you?
I'm okay. A little slow moving, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm also slow moving as
It's all
well.
right. Today, Aimee is joining us, and she is going to talk about her transition from being married to a single mom and having to move and all the things that come with it. She's a
Oh,
fantastic person, incredibly independent and strong. I think it'll be a good episode.
amazing. I had to reconnect just now, so I sort of missed half of that, but I'm sure it was really interesting.
It was, and you missed, like, this massive bomb that I just laid on our entire audience, and you missed it. I'm not saying it again. Sorry.
Have you noticed my shirt that I'm wearing?
What?
For those of you listening to the podcast, because well, we don't know if we'll ever make it onto YouTube.
I mean, I really hope
Um,
you just so they can see the joy and the wonder of this shirt.
my wife
Oh, yes. Yes.
gifted me with the most delicious t-shirt I have ever seen. It has several over embellished photos of my beloved dog who I'm obsessed with, Radar. And then it has his name across the top and
Not
some
Babar.
not it does not say
Or
Babar,
Badar.
it says
Or
Radar
Badar.
or Badar. But it is beautiful and I unfortunately Jenna did not see it right away whenever she first laid eyes on me. So
I'm
that
very
is great.
sorry. If it is ever on YouTube, you will see that you only have half of the words up there. So, does it
I
say
can't
something
wait.
else around his nose, or is that
It
just
says
like a
love.
picture? It
It
says
says love.
love. Oh, stop. It's fantastic. I love it, and the
It's
next time you wear it,
glorious.
I promise I will very quickly realize it says radar.
There she is.
This is Noelle.
Hi, Noelle.
Aimee.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you.
Nice to meet you as
Mm.
well.
So, Aimee, we brought you on today, first because you're fantastic, but also, to kind of talk about I say fantastic all the time. Have you noticed that? Do you know I never used to say the word fantastic until I started coaching? Do you notice this, Noelle? Do you notice that I'm now saying fantastic all the time?
I am actually just listening to the way you're pronouncing your S's.
Oh my god, I hate you. Okay, back to what I was saying. So, Aimee, we were gonna kind of start on just some of your background and, like, in general, just tell us about yourself.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm a marketing professional. I have two kids that are pretty much grown adults now. So 22 and 20.
Tell us, so I had mentioned that you had gone through a divorce, and
Mhm.
we're kind of gonna talk about the transition
Yeah.
from leaving the house, finding a new home. We're gonna talk about the transitions and just kind of the logistics of how you went from family of 4 living into the house to you and the girls finding and living in your own home.
Yeah, it was a really difficult time and my divorce was not pretty and it was a long time. It took I think probably 5 years total. And the advice that I was getting from my attorney was do not leave the house. So we were cohabitating through all of this, which was a nightmare because my ex was somewhat emotionally abusive and it just was really bad. And this I should also mention this was also happening during COVID. So I wasn't even no one was leaving the house at that. I mean, he was, but the kids were at home, I was at home. I mean, it was a boiler, right? Like the emotions were running high.
You
Yeah.
had mentioned, and the only reason I'm saying this is a lot of
Mhm.
the people I've worked with that are going through the process of divorce,
Yeah.
I mentioned to them about not leaving their home because a lot of them are like, "It's okay, I'll get an apartment, I'll move out," to try
Yeah.
to accommodate,
Yeah.
or the other way around. Can you explain a little bit about what that means to not move out?
Yeah, so in the state that we live in, the law is that if you leave the house, it can be considered abandonment, which would mean all of the assets would then revert to the other person. So, the advice that I continued to get from my lawyer, I mean, I was talking to her on a daily basis at that point saying, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is crazy. I can't do this. And she kept saying, you got to hang in there. You got to wait. You got to hang in there. You can't leave. You got to stay. I think for people who don't realize that, it seems crazy, right? So I had friends, neighbors, who were saying to me, like, what are you doing? Why are you still here? Why, what's really going on? Are you okay with all of this, everything he's doing? Are you okay with all of this? And I was like stuck. I mean, there was nothing I could do. I was stuck. I couldn't leave. I mean, I did eventually, as we were getting close, we had been through mediation, a couple times. And as we were getting through that and getting towards the end, I finally just left. And I literally left everything. I mean, I took clothes and I pretty much left. My dad had been going through some health issues at that point too. So I had also been kind of staying with my dad. He'd come out of the hospital, needed some extra help. My mom needed some extra help. So I was also kind of staying with my parents, through parts of this, but still living, still kind of living in the house at home. So yeah, it was that was probably the most difficult thing. And because it was so long and drawn out, I will say for people who have an amicable divorce, they can figure this out. It's when you don't have an amicable divorce, right? And when you've got one party that is really, trying to make things difficult, then it becomes very difficult. And that's when you can't, then you're kind of stuck in the house and you can't really leave.
Right.
So that was the position I was in.
Which, like you said, for most people to look at this, it's like, why would you even? And
Right.
it's sad to me and scary that is the law, that you could be in a very abusive relationship, but if you step foot out of the house, your house is no longer your house. And that's just incredibly scary, the weight of that.
It was terrifying. And there was a period of time, and it was probably during COVID, in all honesty, because that was the worst of all of this, right? There was a period of time where, I was afraid. I mean, I was afraid he was going to do something to me, to harm me. There was a time when my one daughter would like sleep in the bedroom with me because she was afraid he was going to do something. I mean, it was a really difficult time. And even just trying to explain that, my kids were, when this all started, my kids were 15 maybe and 13. So, like I said, it was a long process for me. But when it all started, trying to explain all of this to them, like what's happening, why their dad was acting the way he was acting, what was going on, why I couldn't leave, why I was, and I kind of repeatedly told them that because I wanted them to understand that the behavior wasn't okay. And just because I was staying, that didn't mean I was okay with it. It was that I was stuck there. I had to stay. There were reasons I had to stay. So yeah, it was just a lot of confusing time for them, for sure. Difficult time for me, it took a long time to kind of get through the whole process. And like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. I hope for most people it's not. But it was a difficult divorce for me.
So whenever you moved into your new house or your townhouse or your home, what was that like? As far as was it a feeling of like relief, I'm starting over, or more overwhelming as it was?
No, I will say so. You kind of go through the stages of grief, I think, when you go through a divorce, right? But with divorce, kind of the last stage is relief. It really is, because you feel like, okay, I can do this. I've gotten through this. The worst of it is over. So it was a huge relief. But Emma was a huge, my younger daughter, Emma, was like a huge help in all of that because she was the one that was with me. Alyssa was away at school. She was the one that really supported me and helped me through all of that. And it ended up being amazing because we bonded, I think, a lot over that. And, we were able to kind of grow as, mom and daughter, and learned a lot about each other. And it was a really nice time for us. And I think we had a lot of joy in our lives with the move and with, moving in. And I just remember how happy we were the day that we moved, and all the new furniture was coming and we were setting things up, and it was an exciting time. But yeah, Emma was my true kind of rock through that whole period. We had our own space to do our own thing with, and it honestly, it was just pure joy from both of us, I think.
So you had your career and your job already established whenever you moved. Do you think without that, this transition would have been a lot more difficult?
I think it would have been a lot more difficult. I mean, I was fortunate that, I didn't have to rely on him as a matter of fact, I ended up paying him child support, which was ridiculous because my kids were with me the majority of the time. Before COVID, I will say we were like pretty equal earners. We both made about the same amount of money. So when COVID happened, he was having trouble. His job, he was having trouble. So I was earning much more than him at that point. So hence how I ended up paying him kind of
Right.
some alimony and child support. But yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I was able to, that I was, had a successful career. I didn't have to worry about that piece of it, because I think that is a big, concern and worry for a lot of people.
How often, so at that time, what
Mhm.
was the custody agreement like? Because I know that's a huge concern with anybody who has
Yeah,
kids. Like, you're
yeah,
thinking of your kids and you don't wanna put your kids in a situation they don't wanna go into, but
yep,
sometimes you have
yeah,
to, you're forced to.
yep, yep, exactly. So at that time, like I said, my older daughter was away at college. My younger daughter was here. She was a sophomore, junior, sophomore, maybe. I'm trying to remember, in high school. And so, we were kind of trying to figure out, what that custody agreement should look like. She felt a sense of obligation to go back and forth. So she did. We did not go through the courts to kind of do the custody arrangement, because she was old enough to kind of decide on her own. She decided to do a week at each place. So she went back and forth for a week. I will say that was really, really hard, I think, on both of us. It was hard on her. She used to laugh. She used to say, I've got my divorce bag. Like, here I go with my divorce bag. She would pack it up and like take it to the next place. So it kind of became a joke between us. But I could see in her, it was hard for me, first of all, to be alone. That was, I mean, the first time
Right.
in 20 some years that I was alone, right? So that was
Mhm.
difficult for me. Um, and for her, I think it was, a lot of emotions. I think, he wasn't very present at the time. Her dad wasn't very present at the time. So she would go to his house, but it wasn't like he was spending time with her or doing things with her. He was gone, most of the time. So he wasn't around to really, so she kind of got to the point where, she usually went back and forth on Sunday nights. She would start to kind of drag it out and say like, I'm going to stay until Monday. I'll stay until tomorrow. I'll go tomorrow. And then she would go Monday, and then that would drag out to like Tuesday, and then eventually Wednesday. And then, finally I had a lot of conversations with her just to say like, why are you doing this anymore? Like, why don't you stay here? You can go see him whenever you want. Like, you can go over anytime you want to go over, but you don't have to stay
Right.
there. You don't feel obligated that you have to stay there. So it was really rough on her, really rough on her. And, easier to some extent on my older daughter, because she wasn't here for a lot of that. She missed a lot of that. And I think for my younger daughter too, it was hard. She didn't have anybody that was going through a similar kind of situation that could relate to her, that she could relate to, that she could talk to. So it was hard. It was a really, really hard time.
At that time, where did you look for support? For you, for the girls, just in
Yeah.
general, where did you find that support?
Yeah. So when the divorce started initially, I said to both of my kids, do you want to talk to somebody? And my younger daughter was very open to that. So she said yes, she wanted to see somebody. So she started seeing a therapist when she was pretty young, when this kind of all started. My older daughter is very much like, she's one to kind of bottle everything up and keep it inside and doesn't like to talk about her feelings. And so she was like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And frankly, um, things were, when she was home before she left for college, things weren't, except for like that COVID period. She graduated during COVID and then left for college during COVID. So that was kind of the worst, some of the worst times of the divorce and of us all living together. But then she went away and missed a lot of it. And she started her own life at that point, like she was at college, she was doing her own thing. So it was a lot easier for her. My younger daughter though went has been seeing a therapist, still continues to see a therapist, who has just been amazing in her life. Um, has given her the ability to see things in a different way. You know, uh, Really just has made a huge difference in her life. I can't say enough good things about that. Um, for me, it was a lot of friends. I had two or three really good friends that knew everything, knew the background, knew the whole story with my ex and what was going on, and knew what I had been through. And those were the people that I really leaned on. And they were able, that worked for me, because, I could open up to them, and they, talk to them, and they knew us, and they knew the relationship, and they knew my ex. So,
Right.
they were able to kind of really support me through it.
How were your daughters? Was their relationship impacted at all going back and forth between, obviously having different living arrangements? Were they able to lean on each other for support quite a bit? Have they always been close?
They were very close as they were younger. I think when we started going through this, it became difficult. And frankly, I think my younger daughter had a lot of resentment towards my older daughter because she left and went to college, and my younger daughter was kind of stuck here dealing with all of this. So I think that has certainly taken a toll on their relationship to some extent. And I think just they're very different kids. Like I said, my older daughter doesn't show emotion, doesn't show her feelings, doesn't like to talk about her feelings. So like I think when my younger daughter wanted to talk about things and wanted to say like, how do you feel about this? Or, Alyssa would kind of, my older one would just kind of like cut her off or shut her down or, wasn't really open to talking about things. So that's been hard because that has definitely taken a toll on their relationship. I think they're starting to, my older daughter's now back home because she's graduated and she's working and living at home right now. So, they're starting to get a little bit closer again, but it's been hard. It's amazing the toll that it takes on the whole family that you just don't.
Everyone. Yep. First off, thank you for sharing your situation and story because obviously
Yeah.
everyone's is different. As you've been talking, it has reminded me that I am of the privileged variety of kids who come from divorced parents whose parents were
Mhm.
best friends after they got
Yeah.
divorced. There are some universal themes though that I think you realize that are just consistent across the board, right? So when my parents got divorced, they also gave us the option of how, where do you want to stay? And my mom was the one that moved out. My dad stayed in the house. So I, being the oldest who probably didn't like to talk about her feelings, was like, I'm staying
Mhm.
here. This was not my decision, so I'm not going to be uncomfortable. Like, I'm going to stay where my friends are. I had, kids in my neighborhood that I was really close with. And I don't remember that as being a decision that I made where I chose my dad over my mom, but I know looking back and some of the conversations I had with her that was how it felt to her. And again, that was a really amicable split. At the time, I'm sure there was loads more than I understood or knew. But
Yeah.
the idea of like my brother would go back and forth every other week. And I remember that, our relationship, we've always been close. He's 4.5 years younger, but I think it definitely there was probably some strain on that during that time. It's definitely just reminded me that, I'm so, so grateful that they, because of the fact that it was a situation where they could work through it and not everyone is, like, that is
Yeah.
1000% not something that everyone can do, especially if there's abuse involved. But it just
Mhm.
makes me feel really grateful that there wasn't our situation was what it was, and I've always felt really lucky for that, but hearing so many other people, you know, provide insight on their own divorces and knowing that that's not the norm, of, people that are able to remain friends and kind of come out on the other side of it, but
I wish that we were able to be friends. I wish that, I wish it wasn't like this. I really do, because it would make things so much easier for everybody. And yeah,
anytime there's emotional abuse though, or any abuse, it
yeah,
just I can't imagine what it's like, especially like you said, to show your children, like, this is not acceptable behavior, but this is kind of the behavior that we're surrounded by right now. That must have been so hard.
yeah. It was really hard. I mean, yeah, I remember having those conversations multiple times as this kind of dragged on multiple times to say, like, this isn't okay. I want you guys to know I'm not okay with this. It's not okay. And I don't ever want you to be treated like this or ever want you to think it's okay to be treated like this. So I had lots of those conversations with my kids.
You said your oldest daughter was 15
She was about 15, yeah,
at the
when this
time?
started.
That's an age where I think those conversations are pivotal. So, like, the fact that you were able to point out, "Hey, like, this is something that is not acceptable," and it's a great example of it's not cut and dry. It never is. It's never as
Yeah,
easy as just getting up and walking away, and there's a lot of gray area when it comes to
yep,
unhealthy relationships. And so being able to show your daughters, like, and sort of point out the things that weren't acceptable, but that you unfortunately still had to deal with, and because of the fact that he's their father, there's an element of, like, he will be a part of the scenario forever.
yeah. Yeah, and we had lots of conversations around that, and I tried really hard, I watched my brother go through a divorce before I did and watched kind of the toll that it took on his daughter. And I tried really, really hard, never to badmouth him, but to say like this isn't okay, like this behavior isn't okay. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was really difficult to have those conversations. And I think they both had a lot of anger. I mean, just in general, their lives were upended and changed too. And, it was difficult.
I also think it's important to note that nobody wants it to be ugly, like, of course,
Right.
nobody wants it to be a situation where that it is. Like, nobody would choose to have to go through the court system or to, um,
Yeah.
to have it be so, like, toxic almost, but that's not always an option to avoid that.
Yeah.
With the coaching, that's a lot of the time when I step in, is when conversations can happen, and it's helpful, I think, to be able to lay out to them, like, all the ways this could go, and think of all the scenarios, and then kind of come up with how will you feel if that scenario happens, just to kind of prepare yourself, because I think a lot of this is the unknown. What's gonna happen? What do we do at the house? What are the kids? All those things, and that's just adding on top of your hurt and anger and frustration of your relationship ending and sadness. So
Yeah.
to manage all of that on top of what you're going through is a lot. And I feel like, and you can, as far as like the coaching, and this could be like what your friends were doing to you or for you, at least having somebody to give you those like options, like this could happen if you do this, or let's rehearse what you're going to say. It kind of brings back a little bit of like control over yourself in the situation, which I think a lot of people are lacking.
No, I agree with you. I think I wish, Jenna, that I had had somebody like you in my life when I was going through this, because I could have
I wish
used
I
someone
had
like
been there.
you. Yeah, I could have used someone like you to talk to, because it's hard, and I mean, frankly, like it's embarrassing. I was embarrassed about what was happening. I didn't want people to know the whole story, and that I had put up with a lot for a lot of years before all of this kind of came to a head. But it's embarrassing, and I mean, I came from parents that are going to be married 60 years this year. So it was a lot of anxiety around, just embarrassment and kind of admitting that it was a failure. It felt like a failure to me. Nobody goes into marriage thinking they're going to get divorced, right? So it felt like I'd failed, and it was just a lot. It was so many emotions, so many different emotions. I wish, now I wish I had either found a therapist or a coach, Jenna, someone that could have like helped me through some of that. But at the time, I was so focused on my kids and
Of
making
course.
sure they were okay. I took a back seat to all of that.
And that's because you're a fantastic mother, and
Mhm.
you also have 2 amazing daughters, so you have done exactly what your intention was with your children, and they are functioning very well in society, are the kindest girls, and they're doing
Aw.
very well. So you have accomplished everything you put yourself through to get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I felt like my job was to protect them and take care of them and make sure they were okay. I was like, I can deal with anything. I can deal with anything. I can deal with anything as long as they're okay. That's the most important thing to me, as long as they're okay.
Right.
I would say, like, I sacrificed a lot of myself in that whole
Oh,
process, right?
yeah.
Like, I think I gave up a lot of myself and sacrificed a lot of myself, but, even now, I would say it was totally worth it. Everybody's great now. I mean, I am so much happier. I can't even explain to you how much better my life is. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happier. The kids are much happier. They both stay here now, full time, and they see their dad. And Emma, my youngest, is kind of rebuilding, I would say, her relationship with him, which is good. I mean, I'm happy that that's happening. I don't want her to be angry. She's gotten much better at sort of understanding who he is, and I would say maybe accepting that, so that she has lowered maybe her expectations somewhat with him. And I think that's helped her. And I think for my older daughter, he never really had much of a relationship with Alyssa anyway. He kind of ignored a lot of what she was doing or what was going on with her, and really focused a lot on Emma, which was, had its good and bad in both ways. So they both have kind of dealt with it in different ways. For her, I remember Alyssa saying to me, probably before she left for college, and, I was kind of saying to her, like, hey, you can always come home. You can always, the door's always open. You can always come back. You can always, whatever, if you're not happy, kind of having all those discussions with her. And she was like, Mom, I got this. Don't worry. And I know who I can count on. I know who I need. I know who I can count on. And it was kind of the same thing with Emma. Like Emma, Emma was the same way. She would say the same thing. Like, I know who I need to rely on. I know who I go to for help and questions. So yeah, it's been, I mean, it's been a process for sure. But I think we've all come out better on this end for sure.
Last 3 years, I think 3 years, right? 3 years
Yeah,
we've known each other?
yeah,
3 years we've not the change that I have seen just because I'm ultra aware of, like,
yeah,
situations like that between
yeah,
obviously, I'm not with Alyssa as much, but with you and Emma have just been, like, remarkable. It's crazy how much that affects just your everyday life and how much it controls just everything. Like, even
yeah.
I always think of, like, the outside appearance, but, like, your outside appearance, like, not being tense all the time or being, like, unhappy and just being able to smile and do things and have fun again. I've noticed that from both of you, and when you had pointed out about Emma being able to now recognize more of, like, meet him where he is
Yep.
rather than expecting a change. I think that's such an important thing to learn of people in general, and that's such a great point that you made because we have expectations. We want people to love as much as we love, and sometimes they're not capable of that. And when you get to that point that you realize that and you accept that, it's like the most freeing, "Okay, like, I can do this now because I'm not trying to make him love me or whatever. I'm just gonna let him love me how he knows how."
That's been eye-opening, I think, for her. And it took her a long time to get, to kind of get to that point. I've seen a huge shift in her with that. And I can see she's much happier.
Mhm.
She's kind of let go of some of the expectations with him. And I think that's helped her tremendously.
I love it for both of you.
Yeah.
And Alyssa, but I don't see her as much, but I get her
Yeah.
because not everybody can process the same way, and, like, we were talking about this, Noelle, how different people grieve, even, like, siblings, just how different they process and grieve, not one or the other being worse or better, just
Right.
different, and accepting that also
Yeah.
as the one who's able to talk, that some people just can't, and that's okay, as long as they know where they can go.
It's been very freeing for all of us, I think. And, just I saw a huge change in Emma too when she decided, to stop trying to go back and forth, to just stay here for a lot of reasons. I mean, that's hard on any kid to do that. I think, the back and forth once a week it's tough. So you never know where your stuff is. You never know, where you're going to be or what you need or, all of that. So I saw a huge change in her when she made that decision too. So it's been, she's had a lot of growth, really a lot of growth. And Alyssa has too. But
And how
so,
are you doing? Where are you at right now with the process? Happier, freer, I know that, but in general, where are
yeah.
your thoughts?
Well, and I will say, so after, even after the divorce was final, we still owned the house together. And so that was a whole nother process. So the house finally sold last year, and that was a huge relief. I mean, there was a just more of a, it was, again, it was a control thing. There was a lot of, control going on there. So that gave me a lot of peace that I didn't have before that. If not, now I really don't have to deal with him unless it's something with the kids. And I mean, I haven't talked to him in I don't know how many months, which has been for me, it's created a sense of peace. I would say relief and peace and, able to like feel like I can move on with my life. And yeah, I'm just in a much better place than I was.
With everything you went through, and I wanted to point this out because I think this is important for people going through this process. You're telling things as they are. You're not bashing him. You're not putting him down. You're just telling the facts, but you're also telling the facts in a kind way, knowing he is the father of your children,
Mhm.
no matter what he put you through or them through, and that none of that is okay. You still are being respectful of the situation for your daughters as well. And I really appreciate that because people getting to that point, I think, have so much more calm and freedom.
I've always tried to be that way, especially with the girls. It's their father. He's always going to be their father. I don't want to, they're old enough now to see his shortcomings, right? So I don't need to point them out or or
Right.
talk about them, right? They can figure all that out on their own. So yeah, that's been a very conscious effort, I think,
Oh,
for
I'm
me
sure
too.
it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. And there are times, anytime I get, and it's not very often, but a phone call or a text or whatever, it brings all those all those feelings bubble back up, and the anger, bubbles back up, and I have to kind of okay, tamp it down and
Right.
say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let him get to me. I'm not going to let him bother me. I'm just going to, keep
Self-talk,
going with my life.
self-talk.
That's
I
it.
love it.
Yep, that's it.
You're awesome.
Oh,
You
One
are
of my
awesome.
favorite people, and she's also a fantastic volleyball coach.
thanks.
Some point played volleyball for Penn State.
Really?
Yeah,
You went to Penn State?
I knew
I
you were on
did.
delay, Noelle, because I'm like, I knew she was gonna jump in with that one. Noelle grew up in State College.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. I love
Yeah,
State
so my
College.
brother and I went to State College, high school. Yeah, and then both of our parents worked at Penn State, so we
Oh,
were
wow.
always told that we could choose any university we wanted as long as it started with Penn State, which I did not realize what a privilege that was until I was not paying student loans. So,
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
definitely something I appreciate now more than ever.
I always say I could go back and retire to Penn State, but then I think it wouldn't be the same. Like when I was here as a student and I had
Yeah.
no worries, no, I was living my
Yeah.
life, right? It was awesome. But if I went back now, it certainly wouldn't be like that. But
I lived
yeah,
there for a long time, and I think I went back a few years ago maybe. It's so different.
isn't it crazy? My older daughter
Different.
graduated from Penn State.
Oh,
So
amazing, okay.
yeah, so I mean, when we first went up to look at it, when she was looking at colleges, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how different it is. Everything
Yeah.
looks totally different." Except I will say she lived in probably the oldest dorms on campus that looked exactly the same as when I was there.
My wife is gonna be thrilled that I haven't been screaming into the microphone as much as I usually am. The episode we're about to post, I had Beth listen to it, and she's like, "God, you love the sound of your own voice, don't you? Just like you're just screaming into that microphone."
I love
So
it.
both of you have the shared experience now of a child being out of the country. How are
Yeah.
we feeling?
We're both like, yeah,
It's only been a few days and it's not
enough.
I don't like it. I'm ready for them to come home.
What an
Yeah.
amazing experience, though. They are somewhere in Europe, in a European country, across the Atlantic Ocean,
And thankfully
living
together,
the
because that's
dream.
really what is getting both of
Yes.
us kind of through this, is knowing
Oh my
that they have
God.
each other to support
Yeah.
each other, because otherwise I don't know that I'd be doing as well as I am.
Yeah. Same. Same.
So Jenna, it's your oldest, and Aimee,
Yes.
your youngest, right? That
Yeah.
are so is it are you guys doing okay?
I'm okay-ish.
I mean, yeah, I'm
Good.
okay-ish, but it'll all be fine.
That's our job, is just the constant worry.
That is so true. Noelle, you're gonna learn soon.
Very
It's
soon.
I
Yep.
know. Oh gosh. I was thinking about that, like, whenever Jenna was saying it was already this week or that he was leaving. I realized I was like, "Holy cow, like, this is gonna be my life eventually," and I already am like, "God, it must be so hard when they grow up and become independent and, like, don't need you anymore," and mine
It
doesn't
is
even
really
need
I
me
I
yet.
used to think, like, when they were little was difficult, like,
Yeah.
bringing them to preschool and them crying and me walking out, like, bawling in my car, and,
yeah,
like, just the days were longer and things like that, and I'm like, "Oh, I would take that back in a heartbeat
Yeah.
before dealing with." I honestly think the beginning of the end is when they start driving, like, that is the ultimate, like, "Okay, I really have no control now, and I
yes.
trust my kid, but I trust nobody else on the road."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is when it's like, "Oh, this isn't good."
It's wonderful to see
Mhm.
them grow and experience all
Yes,
these things and thrive. I mean,
yes.
that's amazing, but there's a part of me that's like, "Oh, I just want my baby back."
Yeah, I'm very excited for them, so I'm trying to allow that to, like, seep through more than the
Yeah.
extreme fear. It helps that Noelle, and I told them both this, that Noelle could get
Oh,
into a
yeah.
plane and be there within a few hours.
But all that yeah, it's the thought of them being so far away.
I said to Beth, I was like, "Oh yeah, Amy's daughter is also studying abroad, so I'm gonna obviously talk to them about like what it's like having their kids abroad." And Beth's like, "It's been like 3 days."
Just wait,
It's like
I
you're not.
can't even begin to tell you how I cannot wait. Like, I almost want you to put a camera
I
in your
know.
home or, like, on Beth, because I think she's gonna have the biggest change, Like for the not for
Oh,
better,
she
not that
is.
she's not. I mean, I love her. She is as straight, tell it as it is. Like, and I
She
love that
is.
about people, but I do love that. But like, I think her heart is gonna be like the baby's in the other room and she's like, but remind her that when the baby is in the other
Yeah.
room with you and she's like, where's the baby? Be like,
Yep.
yeah, she's only been gone, or he's only been gone for like 2 minutes.
Jenna, should we talk about the end of our episode that we always talk about?
You may run with that, Noelle. As always, you present it so much clearer and better than I, and louder.
Aimee, do you know about our glimmers?
I mean, listen, I'm a listener, so
Best.
yeah.
Best. I had to
We
throw that
always
in there
like to
'cause
end our episode with a glimmer. I did have one. I'm thinking. I'm not frozen again. Um, yeah, my glimmer is going to be just Raffi. Generally speaking, just Raffi, the musical genius that is Raffi. I feel like well, I should elaborate. So I think
Maybe.
for me, my glimmer is what?
I said maybe,
What?
yes, that's probably a good idea.
Um, so it's more the fact that so my wife is pregnant, which I mention every single episode. But being able to kind of dig into my like toy box of childhood memories and sing songs that I grew up with to my baby in my wife's stomach. And also creep out every single Brit while doing it has been a true joy. And I can't wait.
Every single phrase.
And I can't wait to continue some of those traditions because I think they were kind of buried a bit deeper in my memories of my parents. But when you start to think, oh, okay, now I'm going to have a kid and what do I want them to grow up with? And what did I grow up with? It's sort of it peels away another layer of
Love
your
that.
relationship with your parents. So
Yeah, I do too.
love that.
Aimee, are you ready or would you like me to go?
No, you go, and then I'll go.
Mine, if you're continuing with Raffi, I'm continuing with the volleyball theme. So I just wanted to point out that in my home, which is not a huge home whatsoever, um, I purchased for one of my children a volleyball that is an indoor volleyball. I am that parent because I don't care. In my a house is to be lived in. So we got this volleyball and I'm so excited about this stupid present. I'm so excited. So we put a mat out, like a gymnastics mat. Mind you, this is a little room. This is a little room out. And we are now playing volleyball every single day since almost Christmas. And do you want to take a guess who is the reigning champ of volleyball against the volleyball player? Me. It's me. So my glimmer is I am grateful that my kids and they still like spending time with me and playing volleyball, and that I still am that superior in sports that I can be the reigning champ in my home.
Okay, so my glimmer is I mentioned that my older daughter is living at home, and thank God she is because it is January 19th, and I still have Christmas decorations up that are coming down today. My glimmer is my daughter is home to help me, thank
The
God,
best.
Oh,
take some of that stuff down.
That
and
actually
put
is
it
a
away,
huge glimmer. That's
right?
the glimmer of all
Yeah,
glimmers. That is
I
the
don't have to
worst
do
job on
I don't
earth.
have to do it by myself this year. I have some help, so
Oh,
it's
and
a
that's the
beautiful thing.
worst, taking it down.
I know. I'm dreading it.
I know,
But
just
it's
get it
I mean,
done.
it is January 19th. I think it's time. What do you guys think?
I think this is a good day for it.
It's a good day. It's a good time to take it down.
A good day.
I mean,
Perfect timing.
It's been great to
Sorry,
meet you.
Noelle,
Noelle.
you're in a little bit of a delay, so I think we're speaking all at the same time, so that's
yeah,
what's
no,
going
I'm just having my own little conversation over here in
on.
England.
It's okay.
It's all good.
It's kind of how conversations go with me. Nobody really knows what's going on or what I'm saying. They're all
Okay.
just kind of like, okay.
Got you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Life and Death Podcast.
Please be sure to leave us a review and comment to let us know what you thought of the episode. And don't forget to follow us so you never miss an update. You can email us at lifeanddeathpodcast@gmail.com. You'll find Jenna on Instagram under the handle Jenna Marie Life Coaching, and I, Noelle, can be found at Noelle E. Carlin.
Living death through ups and downs, finding smiles beyond the frowns. Stay with us, we'll light the way. See you next time, bright and